Hi, gorgeous. Welcome to Lounge of the Single Women Society. I'm so excited to have you here, as always. I'm always like, I need to switch up the intro. I need to say something different, but I, I know you could be anywhere else, and you're deciding to be here with me, whether you're on your walk, whether you're working out, whether you're cooking dinner, whether you're laying in bed or getting ready in the morning. I know you can be anywhere else. And this is how I feel about all of my work is that you are giving me an opportunity to be in your life. And what an incredible honor that is. In fact, it's been so much fun to watch this podcast and show grow. We're still a baby show. We're still like a baby podcast. We're getting there. In fact, I knew when I started the podcast, I knew that this is something, it's a commitment. It's a commitment for sure. But we have listeners all over the world, ladies. Listeners all over the world. South Africa, France, Netherlands, Finland, United Kingdom. I was going to actually make a list of Brazil, all different states of the United States, Mexico, the Philippines, I believe. So thank you all. If you're listening to this and I've given you a shout out and I haven't given you a shout out, I promise you, I will make sure to make a list to thank all of you for listening to the show and to listening to the podcast. All right. Well, grab a drink of choice, pull up a seat and let's chat. I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but when I was preparing for today's topic, I feel like that this is something that you can use in so many different areas of our life, because I'm going to talk about your worth today. I'm going to talk about your worth. I'm going to talk about what you feel is valuable in your life. I'm going to talk about knowing what you want and knowing what you deserve and to not settle. I'm not going to talk about necessarily settling, but how do you know the difference between being too picky and not settling? Because there is a difference. It's kind of gray. And I think as a single woman, I used to get this all the time. And I'm sure you have too, where, especially if you've been single for a long time, people have their opinions on why you're still single. And for me, it was even to the point where I would almost get in arguments with people where people just tell me that I was too picky. And I would always say, it's not that I'm being too picky, it's that I'm refusing to settle. But when you hear that over and over and over and over again, it does, and you don't have anybody to like, other than your girlfriends or your mom or your sister, you don't have someone to go to tell you yes or no. And you kind of will start second guessing yourself and sitting down with yourself and saying, okay, am I just being too picky? I've been single for a long time, or I've been single for a while, or whatever the case may be, right? You're saying to yourself, okay, am I being too picky? Or am I just not wanting to settle? And it goes true for not just dating, right? Like we can apply this to dating, to getting married, to finding a house, to picking a college, to finding out an apartment. There are so many different shows where like house hunter shows, or I remember there was a show that I watched and I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, the concept of the show was it was either you could apply $10,000 towards the down payment of the house of your dreams or whatever house, or $10,000 to go towards your wedding. And so the real estate agent was the real estate agent was kind of trying to win them over with the houses that she would find. And the wedding coordinator was like trying to woo them over of all of the different discounts and things they can do for their wedding. And I remember watching this show as we're picking out venues for weddings, as we're picking out houses to move into, apartments and colleges. Even as a spectator and sitting from the outside in, I've been guilty of that, where I look and I'm like, they're being too picky. You know? They're being too picky. And I think it's really easy for us to say that. We're like, really? I think you're being too picky. Like pick and choose. Like, what is it? How do you pick and choose? How do you know what's best for you? especially if you're getting pressure, if you're getting all of the pressures. So I thought that I would break it down for you today. This episode's not going to be very long, or maybe it is. I always say that. And then like I end up recording like another 25 minutes. That is not what I plan on doing today. And I have to apologize. I'm a little tired. So both my kids were in town this past weekend. So their birthdays are 3.5 weeks apart. And so we did a little joint birthday celebration. And my son's flight left at 6 a.m. this morning, which means I've been up since 4:45. And I am not, if you know me, I am not a morning person. Okay. So maybe I'm getting my 17th wind of the day. So let's talk about the difference between being picky and not settling. So let's talk about the difference of the two. So when it comes to being picky, again, everybody's definition of this is different. But when I think about being in my eyes and in my heart and with my clients, what I feel is being too picky is expecting perfection out of something. So we all have these ideas of what perfection is. And this can go true with dating. This can go true with finding, higher education, finding a job, finding that perfect house. When we go into, and I'm sure that all of you have watched shows like this when it comes to like house hunters and stuff, and you watch these people and you're like, what is wrong with that house? And she's like, the wallpaper's wrong. Let me just give you an example. Like everything about this house is absolutely perfect, except the wallpaper's wrong. Now, you and I both know that you can just take down the wallpaper, but she doesn't want to. She doesn't want to take down the wallpaper. So instead of saying to herself, okay, I'm not going to settle. I have certain expectations of what I want this house to be. She's saying, oh, this house is absolutely perfect other than the wallpaper. And I don't want to take down the wallpaper. And so the house is not good for me, or it's not a good fit. Right. So when it comes to being picky, we have expectations of perfection. And this means checklists. And I've talked about checklists. I know you've heard me about checklists. When we're being too picky, we expect every check on our checklist to be marked off. Every check. If you're going into dates, or if you're going into any kind of situation, whatever you're looking for, house or apartment or new job, if you have this checklist and you're not willing to budge off of this checklist, and you have to have every single check of this checklist marked off, and you are trying to seek perfection in what you're doing, that is when you need to take a step back and go, okay, am I being too picky? And this is how I knew in my heart that I was never being too picky. I had checklists, but there were things this is when here's the difference between knowing if you're being too picky or if you're not settling. There were, what do they call that? Like there were items on my checklist that I knew I could compromise on. And then there were my hard stops, right? There were items on my checklist where I was like, no, it has to be this for me. It has to be this for me. And these items on my checklist, I'm willing to compromise, because let's face it, ladies, relationships are compromises, right? Taking a new promotion at work is a compromise. There's checks and balances with everything. You can't expect perfection out of a relationship. It's just non-existent. It's not a thing. There's always room. There's always room to discover more about one another. So let me give you an example of something that may be on your checklist that shouldn't be, or I shouldn't even say that, but because let me just tell you what I was going to say. Sorry. 4:45 a.m. Okay. So here's an item on your checklist that could be that you could compromise. If something on your checklist says they must have the exact same interests as me, They must root for the same sports team as me. These are items where, and I was even talking to my son about this weekend. When we have the same exact interests as our potential partner, that can kind of be boring. That's one of the amazing things about dating someone who has different interests. As long as those interests don't intersect or conflict with yours, right? That what they're interested in interests you. And that was one of the things that brought me to Brian, was that we didn't have common interests, but his interests I was fascinated with. I thought, okay, so we don't have the same interests, but I would like to get to know more of these types of interests. And maybe by being exposed to that and not having to have, mark this off my checklist. And this part of my checklist is a part where I can compromise. Then let's explore that. That's when you know that you're not settling. When you know that there are items on your list that you know that you can compromise. It's when you have that complete checklist and everything has to be marked off. That is when you're seeking perfection. That is when you're being too picky. And I would probably push back on you a little bit more and tell you that you're probably doing a form of self-sabotage. Because you're probably telling yourself, I'm just going to wait for the perfect guy. Or I'm just going to wait because these are the things, they have to mark everything off of my list. And when we do that and we're not open to compromise, we're telling ourselves and other people that we're not even really compatible to be in a relationship, because relationships are all about giving and compromise and working together. It isn't your way or the highway, right? And that's, I think, really when it all comes down to it, it's really talking about what is it that you really want out of a relationship, and what are these items that are on your checklist that you can compromise on. Because here's the thing too, if you're seeking perfection off of your checklist and they have to check all these boxes, are you going to be the person is that the type of person that you want to attract in your life? Meaning, if you're the type of person that has to have all your checks marked, are you seeking a person that also has to have all of their checks marked? Meaning they're not willing to compromise. So if this is the type of person you are, most likely you're going to attract the same type of person, and neither one of you are going to compromise on anything. And most likely it's not going to go anywhere. And then you're going to come to me and you're going to tell me that there's no good guys left. You can't find the perfect guy for you, and you can't find the one. And I'm not, okay, I won't talk about that today. The whole concept of the one, I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm probably going to write that down so I can talk about it in a future episode. But do you see how that when we're searching for something that we are deserving of, we have to be open for different opportunities. And if we're seeking perfection, we're only going to be disappointed, because life is not perfect. Life is not, that is one of the most amazing, beautiful things about humankind, is that we're not perfect. Every bump in the road that we go through, every time we have an experience or an opportunity with someone, it shows us our own humility. It's important for us to remind ourselves that all of the beauty comes from our imperfections, not from being perfect. So why are you being too picky as you're searching for whatever it is that you're searching for? Now, you have a difference between having a checklist. Now, here's how you know if you're settling. This is the only when it all comes down to settling. Okay. And I am going to do a future episode about settling, because I did this survey on Instagram and I asked you, the reasons why you've settled in the past. We're going to cover that. But I thought that I would cover this topic first because it's important to talk about the difference between settling in a relationship and being too picky. And when it comes to not settling, this is the main thing. You know when you are settling, when you are denying your needs. That's it. That's how you know when you've settled. That's how you know when you're settling, when you are denying your needs. It's like taking that promotion at work and you know that you have a family and you have, let's just say that you have these hobbies that take up more of your time and attention. So it's important to you to have a job that you only work 40 hours a week, and you get a promotion. They're like, hey, you can have this promotion, but you're going to have to work 65 hours a week. Well, that doesn't meet your need. Even though you're willing, even though the promotion's great, you know that the 65 hours a week isn't going to cut it for you. So you're denying your needs, right? And that might be a bad example, but I think that that's a when I explain it that way, I feel like that you can understand that we all have needs. And if you don't know what your needs are, then that's a different conversation, right? That's when I was talking about how it's important to know what it is that you need. So when you make these checklists, that you're not seeking perfection, but that you're seeking a partner, a career, a home that suits your needs, not that just needs the wallpaper changed, right? You should have expectations. You do absolutely. Your needs need to be met and your wants need to be met. But if you find yourself that you're finding or you're seeking out something wrong with someone, or you're just finding yourself in situations where nothing is good enough, my love, it's not that nothing's good enough. It's that you're not thinking that anything is good enough for you. And that topic dives into deeper of what it is that you really desire and want and need when it comes to your own life. So here's what you can do. Write out your list, no matter what and this can go for anything. This is what I want in a house. This is what I want in a partner. This is what I want in a career. This is what I want. This is what I want. These are my needs. This is what I want. These are my expectations. Needs, wants, expectations. Write a list. Figure out the deal breakers. What are the absolute deal breakers? So say you're searching for a house. Okay, I'm not going to look for a house that was built in 1915. Okay, that's 1915 to 1955. That's your deal breaker. You're like, nope, absolutely not. Deal breaker. Figure out what those deal breakers are. If in dating, the deal breaker is that they live out of state, let's just say they live out of state, that's a deal breaker. You're not going to date someone who lives out of state. Figure out what those deal breakers are. Make your list. Figure out what the deal breakers are, and then figure out the items on your list that you could be negotiable, that you can make a compromise, that you don't completely dismiss someone or dismiss something because they're not checking all of the boxes off your list. And go into it with an open mind and an open heart. And I think when it comes to seeking joy and happiness and fulfillment in our lives, we do find it when we least expect it, but it's because we finally are open up to new opportunities and new experiences. And whatever checklist that we have in our head, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, most likely those aren't even yours. It's societal's checklist that they've put on you. It's your mother's checklist that she's put on you. It's your dad's checklist. It's generations of checklists. It's whatever everyone else has told you that you're supposed to do and say and want and need. But I want you to really reflect on what it is that you want and what is it that you need and what are your expectations, and figure out those items on your checklist that you're like, okay, I could compromise on these things. And that, my love, is the difference between settling, not settling, and being too picky. Yeah. Did that solve it for you? Okay. Did I talk a lot? I think I did. All right. So write your lists. Take some time for you. Grab a glass of wine, grab that cup of coffee and sit down with yourself and go, okay, what is it that I really want? What am I really seeking? What are the things on my list that I can compromise on? Okay, so I do have an announcement since you've made it this far. The Peacock Room, my ladies of the Peacock Room, enrollment is opening back up again on October 1st for only a few days. And I won't cover too much of the Peacock Room in today's episode. You can always go to singlewomensociety.com, and up at the top, it says private group, and you can click on that and it tells you all of the details about the Peacock Room. We have been having so much fun. In fact, these ladies, we meet twice a month and they can't wait. In fact, on the weeks that we don't meet, they're like, wait, are we meeting this week? And I'm like, nope, not this week. And they want to meet every week. We're talking about online dating. We're talking about first dates. We're talking about texting. We're talking about everything when it comes to finding love and dating. And so I want you, if you've been listening to the show for a while and you want an opportunity to not only meet other women of the Peacock Room, but to have the opportunity to allow me to help you in your journey of attracting love into your life, I would be honored. So check that out if you're interested. And that's really all the announcement I have for you today. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of the Single Women Society. And if you're watching on YouTube, hi. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and click the bell so every time a brand new episode is uploaded, you are the first to know. And if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, hello, sweet souls. If you don't mind, would you subscribe and rate and review, especially if you're listening on iTunes, this podcast? This is how other women get to find us. And of course, I would love it if you would share this episode with other women that you feel that need to hear this message. And as always, are you following me on Instagram? I'm having so much fun with these reels. It really shows a different side of my personality. There are a couple of different sides to my personality. You kind of get more of the serious side over here on the show, but the reels, I really get to show my funny, quirky side. So make sure and follow me over there at Kat Cantrell, and on Facebook, of course, at Kat Cantrell. And as always, if you're interested in any additional information, you can visit us at singlewomensociety.com. All right, my love. Don't second guess yourself. If someone says you're being too picky, you know you're not being too picky. You have high expectations and you just refuse to settle. And that's it, because there's a difference. And now you know the difference. All right. All right, my love. Thank you so much for being here. And remember, true love is waiting for you. And I will see you next time. Bye.